This program is brought to you by First National Bank of Batswana. Good evening and welcome to First Issues. In the world of entrepreneurship, the path to glory is not paved with gold, but with the ruins of ventures that simply did not make it. This reality is particularly stark in developing economies. Before any entrepreneur can taste the sweetness of success, they must first confront the daunting statistics of failure. Studies as found in Trending Economics have consistently estimated that the general SMME failure rate in the country is over 80%, with many of startup firms collapsing within the first 18 months of operating. It is into this intensely competitive and unforgiving landscape that the young Newman Ramatokwane threw himself. Newman began his journey over a decade ago, fueled by the inspiration of his parents, who were entrepreneurs themselves in their own right. He was ambitious, launching his flagship company, Pullman Holdings, which is into transport and logistics and rentals, and soon after co-founding Native Stretch Tents and Canopies in 2013. However, the reality of partnership friction and the sheer difficulty of scaling in the service sector soon struck. For many, watching a partnership crumble and an initial vision dissolve might be the end, a final acceptance of the 80% failure rate. But for Newman, this failure was merely the first cut, teaching him the critical importance of control, market niche, and adaptability. He did not quit. Instead, he absorbed the lesson and immediately pivoted, transforming the remnants of that first failure into a new, single-owned entity, Native Events. He took the knowledge he gained of tent structures, logistics, client needs, and refined the entire model. He kept moving forward, building an ecosystem that today includes 52 Sundays and Genwart, with all these companies under one holding company, B Group. The logistical demands and lessons from Native Events continue to help shape Pullman Holdings, which now moves goods across Southern Africa with a fleet of trucks. First Issues is in conversation with Newman to pick his brain about all that maketh him an entrepreneur with grit, wit, and determination. Newman, thank you so much for coming on First Issues, affording us your time. Today we're going to be talking about your entrepreneurial journey, right? You're a very young man who has accomplished quite a bit in his journey of being an entrepreneur. But let us start here by understanding why this path.
Started in entrepreneurship at a very young age. And I don't think by then I knew it was entrepreneurship, you know. I just loved being around people and also being able to interact and trade a product or a service for value. Only later as you are growing up you realize I've long built a foundation earlier without me actually noticing. So for me I think it was more of a calling than anything, more so that it was inspired by both my parents, who by then were sole proprietors, So I grew up around and then eventually learning from those two parents. I saw myself being able to correct what they didn't do right as I was growing up, and then eventually being able to be sitting here today with you with such a remarkable track record in business.
That is quite inspirational. But even with that experience that you've had, coming from a home that both parents are entrepreneurs in their own right? What were those fears, if any, really, that you had when you started your very first enterprise?
I grew up as a kid who really liked trying a lot of things out, right? I've never really allowed fear to take, the forefront of anything that I want to do. I grew up believing that fear is just a state of mind that you have to, at some point, find total control over. So the adrenaline that comes with always finding myself in situations that are more challenging and more intriguing is what actually drives me. So if I'm in a comfortable space, I always poke myself to say something needs to really go wrong. So I would really say I've never had that kind of fear that most people have, but if anything, it was excitement over and above fear to always be walking through certain challenges that are, unwary, like that you are not aware of.
Even in finding excitement in the unknown and all of that, I want to believe you walk into every experience wanting to learn something. But from that though, what key lesson have you learned that you think you should have learned much sooner into your journey?
10 years into business came COVID. I think my biggest reflection in terms of who I am, or what I know, what I've been doing, came through COVID. So because of how interlinked most of my businesses are, I literally lost almost everything. And then, post-COVID, that's when I had during COVID and post-COVID, that's when I had the time to, rebuild again. And rebuilding again, I remember, I sat myself down and I had a moment of honesty with one. And I was like, whatever you think you've been doing right and doesn't apply in the next chapter of life, that is post-COVID. And ever since then, the one thing that I wish I knew before, through the 10 years that led me to the COVID era, was building processes. In the midst of everything that was happening, I knew what I was doing, but I didn't document and pay so much attention to take it out of the man being myself and being able to watch it there, manipulate itself or manifest into what I live for every day. But ever since COVID, I've been able to realize that, had I known how to operate my businesses through a systematic process, a lot could have been done better and actually more in that decade of a period.
bitsa motho gore motho a leke mangwala e go duela metsi.
Mama, ka re male jana ha o tlhoka le go tsamela kgakala gore go duela metsi. FNB re diretse tiro motho.
Senthe.
Mma, kwa go marekisetsong a ile gore ana le tshwala FNB Cash Plus. Se se tlhokanyela ke o mang wa gago mo tirisong le reference number e bon dinomoro tse diriswang go rurihatsa dituelo tsa gago.
FNB what?
FNB Cash Plus.
Madonna makante ke ngonto sampolele ka mananeo ya FNB ya Cash Plus.
La ha re le nna ke gone go utang ka dona ebile ke ne ke sa dumele.
Deposit cash and coins, withdraw from e-wallet, make cardless cash withdrawals, buy prepaid airtime and electricity, pay bills such as water, electricity and many more.
FNB. Dona. Nyawa ena ke ra sa thare. Mpare motiki. Na ke ra go motho hela mamarapedi. O tola skontere hela. Wa go semosong wa go duela semosong. Manane wa FNB Cash Plus.
FNB, how can we help you?
Started in entrepreneurship at a very young age, and I don't think by then I knew it was entrepreneurship. I just loved being around people and also being able to interact and trade a product or a service for value.
Thank you so much for staying with First Issues. We're now in the second leg of our conversation with founder Newman Ramatokwane.
I want us to track back to what you said about having your businesses. Some of them fail during COVID, right? So Maybe unpack that, what happened. I mean, besides the fact that you said the processes weren't properly in place, right?
Yeah.
What would you say led to the outcome?
So just to take you back, some of my businesses were near collapse, and because of my resilience, and like I said in our first chat, that I'm always excited when things go wrong. When all these businesses were going down during COVID, because I'm always agile, I'm always on my feet thinking of the next brilliant thing to do. I came up with a very brilliant product called Nuba. It wasn't fairly new, but I created a revenue arm within Nuba that was new to Batswana, which was an online alcohol delivery platform. We were going through a lot of restrictions there. The bylaw and city council laws didn't allow us to deliver alcohol. We were all closed into our homes because of the restrictions. But post COVID 2021, when they started opening up for us, Nuba saw a boom. So Nuba, before COVID, was a bespoke experiential bar service business model for events. So it was supporting native events from time to time when it had corporate events to do or private events. And then came COVID, that means no interactions, no events, the value chain completely stops. And then that's when I switched on the idea of going online, right? So we went online, and COVID passed. The business exponentially grew. It was exciting, beautiful business. It is by far the greatest, I think, business I've ever done, that I still sit with joy regardless of the outcomes, right? Then COVID went, and we were now opened out to go and interact as normal as Batswana. I saw the business go from this to that in an instant because of how Batswana are wired. So people stop buying online, now going back to the brick and mortar. So as much as I spoke about having learned processes, in this instance of Nuba, the processes that I would have learned would have been to actually do a proper market analysis and get to understand what really drives the customer to want to get your product.
For everything that we do, we usually have a reason. So in this case, what is your why for being an entrepreneur and waking up every single day to keep doing all of these things that you're doing?
For a lot of people that are not that don't have a bit of background about my life, I grew up in a I would say poor background. I know people say it's every successful entrepreneur story. Maybe this is the key ingredient as to why we thrive then at the end of the day, So growing up in a family of four kids and two parents, my parents were always away working very hard. We didn't have the privilege of electricity or water from a standpipe. I only started seeing Gaborone, I think, in my late teens. That's when I moved into Gaps. And pursuing entrepreneurship with every single cell in my body has been that I want to build a legacy. And I think I've achieved to some degree what I woke up that day and said I want to do this for, building a legacy for my family and being able to do further than what my parents could do has always been something that I want to do. Being able to be the first one in the family who puts his head on the block and says, well, I'm going to change the narrative, for our kids, for everybody else who's going to come after us. Our surname is going to be remembered. It's going to also be put up there in the walls, and they say, you don't know this family. This is the guy who started 1, 2, 3. These are the kids, and you see what they're doing. So for me, it has always been a legacy driven on purpose and passion. Having seen my parents, Mama Reksa Mangwinya, my father, Ele Kapentara, at an early age, and I knew what I had to do.
That is quite the outlook. That is quite the reason to have for doing what you're doing, and it's quite inspirational. But in that, it also comes to the fore that you actually do know what you're doing, right? Even though you said sometimes you're just winging it. What is it then that you think entrepreneurs, especially those who are new in this space, get wrong about the whole journey of entrepreneurship?
I like that question. People are going to kill me for my answer, but it's the truth. We focus so much on the end than the process or the journey. It's a long life journey that you have to embark on and strongly dedicate and devote your life to. You have to believe, just like, people that believe in any religion, that one day the results would come. But most importantly, you have to put in the work. So what I've seen from aspiring young business people in Botswana is we want quick results. We wake up today and feel like tomorrow I should be driving that Lamborghini. That is not the truth. The truth is it may happen or it may not happen, but all that depends on your commitment to the journey itself.
Newman Ramatokwane's story is not about being untouched by failure. It is about refusing to be defined by it. In a country where the odds of business survival are so slim, his continuous journey of turning lessons into new, robust ventures is the very definition of entrepreneurial resilience. And with that, we will see you shortly after commercials.
Ta bitsa motho gore motho a leke mangwala go duela metsi.
Mama, ka mala jana o tlhoka le go tsamela kgakala gore go duela metsi. FNB re diretse tiro motho.
Senthe.
Ma kwa go marekisetsong a ile gore ana le tshwao la FNB Cash Plus. So se tlhokanyela ke o mang wa gago mo tirisong le reference number e bong dinomoro tse diriswang go ruragatsa dituelo tsa gago.
FNB what?
FNB Cash Plus.
Madonna makante ke mo ntse samplele ka mananeo a FNB ya Cash Plus.
Hela, ha re le nna ke gone go utang ka dona. Ebile ke be ke sa dumele.
Deposit cash and coins, withdraw from e-wallet, make cardless cash withdrawals, buy prepaid airtime and electricity, pay bills such as water, electricity and many more.
FNB. Dona. Nyawa ene ke ra sa thare. Mpare motiki. Na ke ra go motho hela Mama Rape. O tola skontere hela. O bua go semosong wa go duela semosong. Manane wa FNB Cash Plus.
FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to the show, where on this segment we bring solutions to some problems, issues, challenges, hurdles that entrepreneurs may have running their companies. Tonight we unpack what some may call a buzzword for what has been a few years: ESG. The acronym ESG, environmental, social and governance, is everywhere, but for small and medium-sized enterprises, it is often viewed as complex and burdensome, a set of boxes to tick, if you will. However, in Botswana, a new perspective is emerging, championed by professionals who see ESG not as a compliance challenge, but as a powerful engine for strategic growth. Our guest this evening, Onneile Maripe, or Nelly as she's affectionately known, a distinguished chartered accountant and the CEO of Beyond Growth Consultancy, is at the forefront of this movement. Her company's profile makes it clear they see a direct link between robust ESG practices and a company's long-term success. Onneile and her team are helping Batswana SMMEs understand that aligning with sustainable principles is a direct path to new opportunities. They help companies navigate the complexities of sustainability reporting and internal controls, two areas often seen as difficult for smaller firms. By doing so, they're not just ensuring regulatory compliance, they are fundamentally enhancing an enterprise's credibility with stakeholders. In today's market, having a transparent and responsible business model can help open doors to sustainable finance, attract conscious customers, and help build a reputation that rivals even larger competitors. So, how do you as an entrepreneur get on these new times? Where is the right place to start? Here's our engagement with Nelly. Nelly, thank you so much for coming on First Issues and affording us your time. Today we're here to talk about another entrant of things to do in corporate as somebody who operates an enterprise of whatever sort, which is ESG, right? In simple terms, maybe we could start off this conversation with you explaining to our viewers what ESG is.
ESG is really a framework of how enterprises, businesses, small, medium, large businesses really operate, looking into items such as the environment in which they operate in, how are they actually taking care of the environment and the nature, obviously including aspects like water, electricity usage, and also social, how you actually treat your people. And your people really is your employees, but it doesn't really end there. People also are your customers, as well as your suppliers, and also the community in which you operate, and also an aspect of governance. And governance is really how the business or the enterprise manages its business, looking into things like how are they transparent, how is the business governed, and what are the accountability initiatives that we implement, as well as ethics.
Of course, but why would an entrepreneur need to be ESG compliant? Is it a necessity to have that framework within the enterprise?
It is important for a company to define how themselves they operate intentionally, showing the aspects of the different areas within the ESG itself. And so it also helps a business to differentiate itself from other people. So the reason why it is actually important to define what it is for your business, because different businesses vary, the initiatives would vary from one business to the other, but the theme of ESG is quite relevant. And because now stakeholders in your customers, they are now aware of what a business needs to do to be responsible in order for them to make purchases from that business. The more reason you might need to, I don't want to put it as if we are forcing, but you might need to consider.
So then, if I as an entrepreneur decide to be ESG compliant, where and how do I start?
There's something called an assessment, right? Just so your question is to say, then if I then want to be ESG compliant, how do I start? Firstly, do a scan of what ESG is, as we have discussed, and what do you think you have been doing that is aligned to ESG that can then be structured in a formal way, right? And obviously you will identify gaps that you might not have been doing, and then secondly, then you define your goals. You can actually set a goal of a timeline to say, okay, because I'm only starting now, what do I want to achieve within the next 6 months? And you can achieve 5% of that, it's fine. But then because you have an end goal, eventually then you'll be sailing, you'll reach your 100%. So that's really where you start.
In this age of inclusivity, considering all facets of running a business has become especially paramount. Seeking ESG solutions might just be the catalyst to setting your enterprise up for a successful run, not just financially, but socially and environmentally as well. We have come to the end of tonight's installment of First Issues. Till next time, good night. This program was proudly brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.